Good evening. It's 6:30. Members of council are assembled when you're ready to begin.
Thank you very much, Morgan. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order this meeting of Saugeen Shores Council for Monday, January 12th, 2026. Welcome all members, everyone in the gallery, and everyone watching us via the live stream. We're glad everybody's with us. Second item on the agenda is the land acknowledgement, and Councillor Duhaime has that this evening.
Thanks, Mayor. We acknowledge that we're meeting on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which consists of the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash Unceded First Nation. We understand this land holds immense significance to the people of Saugeen Ojibwe Nation. We appreciate those who live and work alongside us today and who continue the traditions of their ancestors as stewards of the land we are privileged to inhabit. We thank them for their contributions they have made in both caring for the land and in shaping this community. We commit to truth and reconciliation, to acknowledging the truth about what happened to Indigenous peoples because of colonization, and to reconciliation, which begins with each and every one of us. As a local government and public organization, we are dedicated to learning about Indigenous culture, to fostering a better relationship with First Nations and their people, and we commit ourselves to actions that move us forward on a path to healing along with the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation.
Thank you. Third item on the agenda is disclosure of pecuniary interest. Ask any member if you have one of those you'd like to declare at this time. Seeing none, of course, you can do that anytime if you need to. We have no additions, deletions, or amendments, so we're on to item 5, adoption of the minutes. And 5.1, the regular council minutes of December 15, 2025. There's a resolution that council adopt the minutes of the regular council meeting of December 15, 2025 as presented. Is there a mover and seconder? The Vice Deputy Mayor and Councillor Stack. Questions or comments of the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, so now we're on to item 6, public meetings, and we do have one public meeting this evening. And this is a public meeting for zoning bylaw amendment Z-2025-070 for Mitchell. This is a public meeting under the Planning Act. If anyone from the public is interested in this application or wishes to receive a notice of the decision, please send an email to bcplpe@brucecounty.on.ca. First, we will receive a report from planning staff. Then we will hear from the public who are here in person, virtually, or who have submitted correspondence to the email address mentioned earlier. Then council members will have an opportunity to ask questions, and I will ask them to reserve their comments on the application until we've heard from the public. Members of the public are advised that the right to appeal the decision on this application is limited to specified persons and public bodies as defined in the Planning Act or the owner or applicant of the lands subject to the amendment who have provided oral or written comments to council on the application before the decision is made. After we've heard from the public, council will discuss and consider a recommendation on this application. So I will now declare the public meeting to be open and ask the planner on the file to present the application, and the planner on this file is Ms. Julie Steeper. Ms. Steeper.
Thank you and good evening. You may recognize this application before you tonight. The application relates to a previous zoning bylaw amendment, which was considered by council on October 20th. Some members expressed concerns with the rear yard setback relating to the spatial separation and placement of the access door for the proposed detached additional residential unit. Ultimately, a motion was defeated, resulting in the application being refused. The applicant has submitted a second application in response to the feedback received at that public meeting. The purpose of the application is to allow for 2 additional residential units and to seek relief for the rear yard and exterior yard setbacks to the proposed detached additional residential unit. If approved, the application would recognize an existing additional residential unit in a single detached building and facilitate the conversion of the detached garage into an additional residential unit at 570 Johnson Avenue. Changes have been made from the previous application. The location of the door to the proposed detached residential unit has been relocated from the south side of the building to the east side. The applicant is willing to remove the concrete on Waterloo Street, north of the driveway, and plant grass. However, the applicant wishes for the parking area to remain intact to allow for future parking flexibility. The applicant has obtained a letter from the town's chief of building official and a third-party design firm. Both letters indicate that the proposal can comply to the Ontario Building Code. Comments were received from the town requesting additional wording in the bylaw requiring the removal of the concrete within the Waterloo Street road allowance. County staff considered the request. However, it is not recommended as part of the current bylaw. The matter identified does not occur on the subject property, but within the public road allowance. Zoning provisions are intended to regulate land use and buildings. In this instance, the issue identified would not be enforceable. No comments were received from the public. This concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you for the report. So we'll now hear from members of the public who are either present or online. And so we do have one member of the public wishing to speak, the representative of the applicant. And if you introduce yourself, sir.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is Ron Davidson. I'm a planning consultant, and I intend to be incredibly brief. Joining me virtually, or joining us virtually tonight, is Scott Mitchell. He's the owner of the property. He is going to say something in a couple of minutes because at my request, I think it's important that you hear what he has to say. Not much more to add to what Julia has already stated. We had an application before council here back in October, the very same proposal. It was refused on the basis that there was concern from council that the door leading to and from the little house was going to be causing a traffic concern because that door is immediately right next to a parking area on the abutting property. So the application was denied. So we refiled. We're making it very clear that the door will not be located on that side, but rather on the east side, as Julia has indicated. The town's chief building official has indicated he is fine with that. So yeah, we've refiled the application. So the other thing that was raised at the public meeting and mentioned briefly here was the concrete. There was before Scott bought the property, there was an extra, I believe you'd call it an extra driveway or parking area very close to the intersection. And I know Councillor Huber brought it up that she had some concerns with that in terms of people backing out so close to the intersection. In my planning report, I did indicate that on the one hand, we'd be willing to remove it. Ideally, it'd be nice to keep it. Based on the town's comments that Julie read out, we are now in the position that we will definitely remove it. You're going to hear that from Scott tonight. But Julie's right, it does not belong in a zoning bylaw because that actually isn't the part of the subject property that's on the municipal road allowance. So to be clear, that concrete will be removed, and Scott's going to speak to that in just a second. Overall, in my mind, it's a good proposal. It does provide for another badly needed rental housing unit in this town. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council.
Thank you. So we also have Mr. Scott Mitchell, who is the applicant online. So Mr. Mitchell, if you wish to address council, the floor is yours.
Hey, good evening, and thanks for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm sorry I'm not able to be there in person. It was my intent to be there, just something came up with family and couldn't come up. Really want to just take a second to thank staff for supporting me through a quick turnaround of this application, and council as well for considering it tonight. To the point of the concrete on the road allowance on Waterloo Street, I will remove that to alleviate that concern for traffic flow. And it'd be my intention to do that at the same time as completing the works at the adjacent property, and working with Mark right now to firm up the finalization of what that's going to look like. And I would like to do that at the same time. That is targeted in Q2 of this year. So hoping that will be acceptable. And thanks again.
Okay, thank you. So now I will ask if there are other members of the public here to speak either in support of the application or with concerns, objections, or questions about the application. There's nobody in the room. Is there anybody online? The clerk says no, so I'll ask, are there any written submissions that were not already discussed in the planning report, presentation, or oral submissions?
No, there are not.
Okay, thank you. All right, so now we'll go on to comment or questions, I suppose, from members of council. Do any council members have final questions before we close the public meeting and discuss the application? I don't see any. Oh, the deputy mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I appreciate what Mr. Mitchell said about removing the concrete. Can you just confirm again what you were saying, that you intend to do that work at the same time that you're doing work on an adjacent property? And when you say Q2, Are you, can you be at all any more specific on that? Like, is it late spring or is it late summer? That really is the timeline here. The reason that I asked the question is if you plan to remove it, I just, can you be as specific as possible about when we really expect that to happen? And I understand, the potential that you're working with the Director of Development about that, but Q2 is still a long way in the future. Can you be any more specific about that?
So we're finalizing some issues with the site plan agreement on my other property, which is immediately adjacent to this one, the apartment building there. And we're looking to do that work when the asphalt plants are open. And so we'd be looking to cut into the asphalt there and do some concrete work there to install a curb. And when the hope would be that I can do that all at the same time. And when I say Q2, I mean before the end of June. That is the current target. I think we're looking at May, but I don't know yet. I've got a meeting with Mark on Friday to finalize the proposed change to the site plan for the adjacent site. So I'll have a little bit more clarity at that point.
Okay, you couldn't see. I nodded my head a couple of times as you were talking. I just wanted you to know that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, are there further questions before we close the public meeting? Councillor Halpin.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. How will the removal of concrete, will that affect the amount of parking spaces that you have for your building there, the house and the residential units?
It will not.
Thank you.
Oh,
Okay, are there any other questions? I don't see any, so I will now declare the public meeting to be closed. And there is a resolution. Give me 1 second here. The resolution is that subject to a review of submissions arising from the public meeting, the council approves zoning bylaw amendment Z-2025-070 for Mitchell and bylaw 07-2026. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Mayette, seconded by the Vice Deputy Mayor. Questions or comments on the resolution? The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. This is a question perhaps for one of our staff. I appreciate the comments about it's not, the issue with the concrete pad does not need to be within the bylaw. But how do we have any assurance related to that if it's not in the bylaw? Is that something that we should do in addition to this since, I appreciate the direction that it really doesn't belong in the bylaw. So how do we have some assurance that will happen?
Candace Ham.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Charbonneau. So this is an amendment to our comprehensive zoning bylaw, but we have other bylaws that govern activity within the town. Specifically, the bylaw that would most likely apply here is the Boulevard Care bylaw. And so the concrete here currently is in contravention of that Boulevard Care bylaw. And so there would be mechanisms under that bylaw and enforcement to follow up if need be.
Okay, Councillor Halpin.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. It's just a comment to understand Mr. Mitchell regrets starting without a permit, but this is just a comment to contractors out there and to planners out there of the importance of having your permits in place. And for myself, I'm kind of tired of those that seek, go ahead and do work and just ask for forgiveness rather than permission. And anyhow, I think that we have a town that really cooperates with planners. We have a town that's very progressive and a town that promotes growth. But for Pete's sake, get your permits. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll get the Vice Deputy Mayor and then Councillor Mayette.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just wanted to echo Councillor Halpin's comments about the building permit. And I think the message it's been given and shouted out by this council that, and I think Mr. Mitchell realizes that too, and spread the word. I know Mr. Mitchell's very tightly linked with a lot of developers in town. Just spread the word and building permits are important, but I wanted to commend, I've changed my thoughts on this application, and there's some good things happening, like removing the concrete, relocating the door, and planting seed. And so I just like to, commend Scott for doing that, and we're providing much needed, additional rental units in town. So I think there's a lot of good things about this resubmission, the application. So I'll be supporting this amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. I too am happy to see this application come back in its revised form. I think what Mr. Mitchell is trying to do here is commendable. He's taking what the house was really always a multi-residential unit. It was used as a bed and breakfast before. He's just making it official, and I appreciate that. And he's also creating another space along with the apartment building behind. So I think it's all good news, and I'm glad we've come into compliance, and I'll be supporting the application.
Thank you. Are there further comments at this stage? I just agree generally with the comments that were made. I appreciate the applicant taking some steps to adjust the application to match what council had suggested needed to change, and ultimately it adds some housing to the downtown part of Port Elgin, which is great. And it also demonstrates the challenges there are in terms of infill and in terms of adding these additional dwelling units and things to these existing areas. There's a lot of complexity there, and some flexibility on both sides is necessary in order to make these things work, in order to get that density up and create that more affordable housing that we want to create in places like this. So anyway, it's been a bit of a complicated process, but we've gotten, I think, to a good conclusion. So you've heard the resolution. It's been moved and seconded. I'll ask all in favor. That's carried. Thank you. Okay. Now we are going to, so that's the end of our public meetings. We're on to item 7, reports of municipal officers and committees, and 7.1, a report on Blue Water S-2024-009 subdivision agreement. And Candace Ham.
Thank you, Mayor Charbonneau. The Blue Water Draft Plan of Subdivision was approved by the County of Bruce in November 2025. The lands front onto Ridge Street in Port Elgin are at the top of the shoreline bluff. The parcel has been zoned and draft planned approved for residential development. Barry's Construction and Insulation is prepared to enter into a subdivision agreement to develop 15 townhouse dwelling lots. Lots 16 through 19 will be transferred to the town as open space and used for overflow routes and drainage. There are no external roadways or municipal infrastructure associated with this draft plan. The portion of Ridge Street that this development fronts onto and the servicing for this development were completed in conjunction with works for the overall Blue Water Estate subdivision. Special conditions in the agreement include the provision that the developer is to provide warning clauses within offers of purchase and sale related to municipal walkways, and provisions for 3 additional residential units. This concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. There's a resolution that council adopt bylaw 08-2026, a bylaw to authorize a subdivision agreement with Barry's Construction and Insulation Limited for Blue Water S-2024-009. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Stack, seconded by Halpin. Questions or comments from members? We'll start with Councillor Mayette and then Councillor Halpin.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is, haven't we seen this draft subdivision before? Has this not come before us previously?
Through you, Mayor Charbonneau. Yes, so the draft plan approval process happened just recently in November of 2025, so that's why it will seem familiar. So the next stage is for the developer, after they have their draft plan approval, is to fulfill all the conditions so that they can receive their final approval. Entering into a subdivision agreement is one of those conditions.
Okay, Councillor Mayette, or pardon me, Councillor Halpin.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. This question is for Candace, and a member of the public asked me this, and I know I've asked you this question, sent you an email, but for confirmation, Block 16 won't be like a maintained trail, but it's a connecting link. Would that be a way to describe it? And I have a second question.
Through you, Mayor Charbonneau. So Block 16 is a servicing corridor that is north of Lot 15, and it's going to just be an overflow route for drainage.
Okay, thank you. And block 18, or I mean, block 17 is just left as a green space, is that correct?
Through you, Mayor Charbonneau. Yes, that's correct. Block 17 is going to be green space along with blocks 18 and 19.
Right, and blocks 18 and 19 will allow for water drainage and also kind of protect the top of the bluff area. Is that correct?
Again, through you, Mayor Charbonneau. Yes, that's correct. We're at the top of the bluff here, and there was environmental work done as part of the original Blue Water Estates subdivision approval that placed restrictions on development happening too close to the top of the bluff. And so those lands are going to be transferred to the town as open space to offer some protection to those lands.
Thank you. I think that's great. It's good to hear that. I have no further questions.
Thank you. The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was just about block 19 along the ridge, and I'm just wondering, does that block is there an opportunity there for a trail system, or would the trail system go to nowhere? Like, is there any access to down below the ravine there, the ridge, from any part of that block 19? Could you answer that? I'm not sure there's a way down there, but.
Through you, Mayor Charbonneau. No, I don't believe that there is a connection that connects to the lower Shipley Trail that's been formally established by the town.
So just as a follow-up, but that, if I'm in the right area, maybe I'm in the wrong area, just correct me if I'm wrong, but that one block, well, the two blocks, does that, am I correct? Is that where it leads down to Mitchell Lane? Is that the trail across the ridge there behind those houses on, is that where it goes to? Am I in the wrong area? I'm just looking at, I'm just trying to understand. Okay.
Yeah, you can see there that Mitchell Lane is to the south of this area.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions or comments, the Deputy Mayor?
It's really just a question about the draft plan, and on the drawing on the map, it shows what I think would have been a road allowance that now is kind of crossed by lots 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 out to Ridge Street. After this happens, the chunk that's noted on the drawing is part 2, and there's a plan number there. What happens to that? Because it does look like it was at one time a road allowance on a plan. What happens to that? Because that would have been, I think, at some point considered, what would come to the town as a road allowance. What happens with that now if this comes to fruition?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Charbonneau. So I believe what you're referring to is an old part on a reference plan. And so as these lots are created, the new M plan will be overlaying over top of that. And Ridge Street has been created with a jog in it to the east of that. I believe still possibly yet to be assumed by the town, but it will come to the town in place of that. So those lands will just be in private ownership and there'll be an underlying reference plan.
Further questions or comments? I was just wondering about this provision, this warning about the municipal walkway. This is perplexing to me because, like, are we referring to the sidewalk? Is that what we're talking about? Because we're not building walkways in any of those parts that we're receiving, right? We just heard that, like, is that what we're talking about, the sidewalk?
This was added, oh, sorry, my apologies, through you, Mayor Charbonneau. So this was a condition, the warning clauses were added by the county planner as being walkways in the vicinity, just to advise future residents that there could be traffic, pedestrian traffic in the area. And so I don't believe this was added at the request of the town. However, the subdivision agreement has to include those warning clauses so that that we can clear that condition, if that makes sense.
So the subdivision agreement has to include warning clauses proposed by the County of Bruce.
The subdivision agreement, the warning clauses are specified in the conditions of draft approval. They're laid out in the conditions of draft approval
Okay.
and have to be transferred into the subdivision agreement in order for the town to clear those conditions.
So this one was in the conditions of draft approval. It's
That's
just been
correct.
moved over. Okay, and I don't intend to muck with it, although it is, like, I don't know how many of these warnings, like, it just seems burdensome and unnecessary to warn the property owners that there might be sidewalks. Like, I don't know, like, that we warn them that there might be trees and there might be birds and there might be, I don't know. I don't know where it stops, honestly. I think it's something we should think about as in future occasions when we're looking at those draft conditions. Should we push back a little bit on warning clauses and say, like, if there's something unique, we had warning clauses years ago around the CIW wind turbine. Okay, I mean, that's a unique thing that throws shadow flicker. You see it up there. People should know about it, I guess, although if you're buying the property, you can easily see it. But sidewalks, like, I mean, I think we should be asking whether we should be loading these agreements up with all this stuff. Anyway, just a personal bugaboo. I'll let it go now. Are there further questions or comments? Seeing none, then the resolution's been moved and seconded. I'll ask all in favor. That's carried. Okay. So now we're on to bylaws, and there are 2 bylaws there. Anybody wish to consider either of those independently? If not, then the resolution is that bylaws 07-2026 and 08-2026 are hereby read, passed, and sealed this 12th day of January 2026. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Stack, seconded by Grace. Questions or comments? All in favor? That is carried. And a resolution that bylaw 09-2026, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores, is hereby read, passed, and sealed this 12th day of January 2026. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Davinsky, seconded by Stack. Questions or comments? All in favor? Carried. And finally, a resolution that this regular council meeting of January 12th, 2026 hereby adjourns at 6:57 p.m. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Stack, seconded by Duhaime. All in favor? Council stands adjourned. Have a good evening, everybody.